Much to do about something.
Good morning. I'm glad you're here today. You're in the right place. I'm Donna and you're watching Much Ado About Something today. And I'm doing the Three Rivers Challenge, which is a pantry challenge where we just eat from our pantry for 2 months, the months of January and February. Well, I hope this New Year's been really good to you. It's 5 days in and I hope it's just been a great 5 days for you. Yesterday was a lot for me. It was one of those days I didn't get to film, so we're missing day 4. I am a stay-at-home grandma. I was a stay-at-home mom for many years, and I am here by choice. Of course, I work every day, and I'm working on YouTube for right now. This has become my job. I'm really serious about it. I enjoy it, and I want to share with y'all what I can. Now, today's challenge is eating out of our pantry, and I just wanted to share with you one of the things that I like to do when I eat out of the pantry. I like to just pull out my recipes and decide what I'm going to make. Today I'm going to make some banana bread. I got this big thing of walnuts on sale at Sam's. They were a great deal. I hope they don't quit carrying them because I love to buy walnuts and peanuts from Sam's. This is 3 pounds, and I'm thinking I gave like maybe $8 for that, which is an excellent deal. Now I've got some bananas here that need to be eaten up. My banana bread recipe calls for 5 bananas, but I don't have 5. I have 3, so I'm just going to use what I have on hand. And I know from experience that this recipe will work out okay because I've used 3 bananas before. I've got a few eggs from the chickens. They're not laying a lot, but I got a few here and there. And I am going to have to make a cup of tea before I get started. I'm going to make a cup of tea real quick before I get started with this stuff. Before I get started with this banana bread I've got going on here. Now, I have worked hard this morning. I've already made the kids breakfast, and Madeline, our grandchild with disabilities, she likes certain things. So I've already helped her this morning, and I got her settled down. And the other 2 are doing their schoolwork on their, one's doing ABC Mouse, and the other one's doing another school project on their little tablets. So I've got a moment to come in here and share with y'all what I'm going to make for the day. Now I'm going to drink this passion fruit green tea, and I'm going to mix it with some elderberries from our own trees that we've got, our own elderberry bushes. I like the passion fruit. I like the calming effects it has on for me on a busy day. And I'm just going to put the infuser in here. Scoop up some of this elderberries. And make some elderberry tea. Now, I have been drinking my elderberry syrup that I make. You know, I drink that every day. We drink that every day. Donald and I drink this every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. It's elderberry syrup. I have the video on my channel if you're interested in making this elderberry syrup. Of course, if you look it up, there'll be a lot of recipes. There'll be a lot of differences in them, but this one's a really good one. And I drink it every morning. It's an immune booster. It's excellent, and so far I haven't got sick, and I'm hoping that I won't. I'm being very cautious if I go out. We did go to Sam's. I'll show you a few clips to pick up some things from Sam's. Yeah, we went to Sam's, not for any kind of groceries, but to look at their after Christmas sales. They have some good stuff still there, some cookie tins and stuff like that I gave as gifts. And I wanted to pick something up for Ladies Fellowship this month, and you know, get it off of that clearance aisle. So I did that, and I looked at the storage tubs. They still had those storage tubs for $9.98. And they had the dishwashing liquid, you know, that I gave y'all the tip about buying the whole gallon and breaking it down into smaller pumps or squirt bottles, you know, that you've saved or that you have on hand. And that'll save you a lot of money. It's an industrial type, commercial type dishwashing liquid, but it's really good. I'm going to that because it just saves me more money, and I'm a budget-friendly household here, and whatever I can do to help out there, I'm going to do it. So I shared that with you so that you could see that you could pick that up at Sam's. Well, I am going to work on this banana bread. I've drank my elderberry syrup. Let me put this back in the refrigerator. We store it in the refrigerator. Our water's boiled for our tea. I'm going ahead and let that steep up some. We'll put this teapot up and get it out of the way. Now I've got the teapot up and out of the way, and I'll go ahead and focus on this banana bread. I've already got the oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Here is the banana bread that I've always made. You preheat your oven to 55 minutes. To 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It takes about 55 minutes to bake this banana bread. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I already have that in my bowl. I'll go ahead and add the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt. Got the 2 cups of all-purpose flour, remembering that all-purpose is plain. It has no self-rising ingredients in it. It is not self-rising. It's all-purpose plain flour, and you have to add the ingredients to it to make it rise. So we're going to add, I've got a little bit of glare, got this recipe in a sheet protector. So it's 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. I just use baking powder from Walmart. No big deal, nothing fancy. And I just use the same measuring spoon. I use a half. And always putting it in here into this strainer, this little sieve, to keep clumps from getting in here. To keep clumps out of my recipe. Okay, we're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Baking soda can clump up too. You can see it here. It's in little clumps. I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon. I put that in the same little strainer to keep it from clumping up. We need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I think we can manage that. We'll go ahead and strain this all over the... See those little balls, little clumps there? That would be in your recipe if you didn't put it in a sieve or a strainer. We call them sieves growing up. I can't seem to break that habit. Now all the strainers are sieves here, and I'm not sure why I call them that. All right, we'll put the salt up here. We're all done with that. We'll need a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. You can adjust this and add more cinnamon if you would like. Okay, I've got the cinnamon and everything in here. I'm just going to whisk all these ingredients together. Make sure they're thoroughly combined. Now we got all of our dry ingredients right here. We'll work on the wet ingredients. Now before I start these wet ingredients, I'm going to go ahead and grease these pans. I'm going to put seasoning on these pans, a grease on them, so that my banana bread won't stick. Just use whatever you're used to seasoning your pan with. I'm seasoning my pan with lard, but you use whatever you're used to seasoning your pans with. I like to use dark pans because dark pans make whatever you cook in them turn brown. If you use a shiny pan, then they'll stay lighter. And that works for most anything that you bake. So I like to use the darker pans when I can. I do have some lighter pans for my bread. When I make just, regular sliced bread. Now this pan has sharp corners right here. So I have to be really careful to make sure I get my seasoning down into the crack of these corners where this pan is shaped this way. I like this pan though. I like the way it cuts the. You can cut the bread that comes out of it in little squares. It just makes a really pretty little loaf to slice your bread. This one here, of course, is rounded. You can see it does have like an edge, a corner, but it's rounded. It's not as pointy and deep as this one. So you have to be really careful to make sure you get your seasoning down into a pan if you use a pan like this. Now we'll go ahead and mix up our liquid ingredients. Now we've got our pans seasoned so that when we get all of our ingredients combined, we can go ahead and pour them in our pans and bake them. So I'm just going to put these over here. And I'm going to take a minute and mix up the streusel that goes on top of this bread. Streusel is just a wonderful thing that puts a great touch on your muffins or your breads, any kind of breads. Yeah, it takes about 1/3 of a cup of firm margarine or butter. So you put about 1/3 of a cup of margarine or butter in. We're going to make the streusel now, and we'll finish up with the banana bread here in just a minute. We're going to use 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. A 1/3 of a cup of packed brown sugar or granulated sugar. So you can use whatever sugar you like. The difference in brown sugar and white sugar is brown sugar has more molasses left in it. They have molasses in brown sugar, adds a little more flavor, a little different flavor. We want to add a teaspoon of cinnamon to our streusel mixture that we've got here. And it calls for 1/2 cup of chopped nuts. Now I've got my nut chopper right here, and I'm going to throw some of these walnuts in here and chop them up. One little cup of this chopped up is usually what I add to this streusel. And I usually chop them up pretty fine for this streusel because to be going on top of your bread. I'm going to leave this chopper out because I'll probably be using it again when I chop up the nuts that goes in the actual recipe. Now I'm going to set this, I'm going to mix this streusel up, and then I'm going to set it aside for when we put our wet and dry ingredients together to make our... Now this is a little bay leaf. If you don't know, we grew up in the Appalachians putting bay leaves in our flour to deter any kind of pest or any kind of bug from getting in our flour or our cornmeal, anything dried beans, anything. You can put a bay leaf in and it's proven to deter insects or pests. Now I'm just going to chop this, mix this little streusel recipe up in this little bowl. I'm going to mix it up to the butter in here. Becomes about the size of a pea. Now that took a minute or two to get this streusel kind of mixed up here, and I used this knife. We would have called this knife a case knife growing up, but I used this butter knife. I used this butter knife here to make this streusel kind of crumbly and about the size of peas. There might be one or two big pieces in here, but for the most part it's mixed up. And we'll move on to our liquid ingredients. Now this recipe calls for 1.5 cups of mashed bananas. Now I don't have 1.5 cups. That's about 5 bananas. I have 3 bananas. So that's what I'm going to mash up and use today. And I've used 3 bananas before, so it usually works out fine. You can put 3 bananas or up to 8 bananas if you really like it banana-y. But today I have 3 bananas in my pantry, and that's what I'm going to use. I want to use these bananas up. I love ripe bananas, but I think these bananas would be better used in making a banana bread. Now you can use a masher or whatever you need to mash up these bananas that you're going to use in your recipe, but I just take a fork. I just take a fork and mash them against the side of the bowl. Get them all mashed up. It does a pretty good job. Gives my arm a little workout. Now you can use a KitchenAid mixer or whatever kind of mixer you have to mix up all this if you want to. I've used a mixer whenever I've made more than one recipe I've made. If I'm making it for Christmas or for an event, or to take to somebody, making extra to take to somebody else's house, then I will certainly use my mixer. But today, just for this one batch, I'm just going to use my fork. This calls for a cup of sugar to go in the bananas, so I put them in the bananas and mix them all together. Now I've got the sugar incorporated in there with the bananas, and I'm going to add the eggs. This calls for 2 eggs that are beaten, and I just beat them in there, right in there with the bananas and the sugar. Now the next ingredient will be 1/2 cup of cooking oil. Whatever kind of cooking oil that you use. Just use 1/2 cup of cooking oil. And blend that right in with your bananas, sugar, eggs. There we go. We've got our wet ingredients cooked up. Now we're going to have to do some walnuts. Now you can add nuts, any kind of nuts that you like. I like walnuts the best. Or you can completely leave out the walnuts. You can add more or you can add less walnuts. So just know that you have the freedom in that area to mix it up and leave out the walnuts. I chop them up pretty fine, mix them in with the dry ingredients. I have quite a few walnuts, so I think I'll add just a little bit more. This will be an exceptionally nutty bread. And since we're making that just for our household, that'll be an exceptional thing to do. That we can certainly do that. We have all these good nuts that just make this bread better. I have a friend, I make this bread for her, and she loves it for breakfast. It's one of her favorite breakfast meals. My husband absolutely loves it for just to eat it and drink coffee. He loves it with coffee. Now I'm just going to take a minute and whisk these nuts into the flour mixture. That way it'll help these nuts not to stick all in one spot. They'll kind of spread out throughout the mixture if you coat them in flour. Now I'm going to add our wet ingredients. Mix them up. And when you get it all mixed up, just go ahead and put it into your pans. Now you want to give your mixture, your batter here, you want to give it room to rise in your pan. So you can fill your pan anywhere from a half to 2/3 full. So even it out a little bit in the pan. Now I'm going to put this in and let it cook for 55 minutes. But first we're going to go ahead and put the streusel on it before we throw it in the oven. You just kind of want to spread your streusel out kind of all over the top. You won't have to add an ice into this. The streusel will make it exceptionally delicious. It'll add that little extra to this banana bread that it'll make it step it up a notch. It'll be a little fancier. I once had a boss, and he, whenever we had a meeting, he would always eat the top off of the muffins because he said the streusel was his favorite part. He would never eat the rest of his muffin. He just ate the top because it had the streusel on it. Go ahead and get this bread in the oven. Try to give them each space so that the heat can get around each one. Keep them kind of in the center of the oven. We got them in there to cook. I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 55 minutes. That's what's recommended on the recipe. But I'll check it often. Now I've got 55 minutes to wait until this until this banana bread with streusel bakes. So in the meantime, I'm just going to go in here and enjoy my cup of tea, and I'll be back with you right when that's coming out of the oven. Here is the commercial dishwashing liquid that I shared with you that you can buy and split into small bottles that you've saved, and it's $6.98 for a gallon. And that turns out to be pretty good. Here are those 2-gallon totes, are those 27-gallon totes for $7.98. They're an excellent deal. We are not here for groceries. We are here to get after Christmas clearance.
So cool.
And now my memory slowly coming back. Cracks a smile upon my face, then it all turns back.
It's out of the oven. I'm going to put a little bit of butter on top of it, because if you've been around, you know that's what I do to my baked goods when I pull them out. I put a little butter on top. And I'm going to do the same with this. I'm going to leave it in these pans for about 10 minutes before I try to put it on a cooling rack. I don't want to mess up the streusel, so I'm just going to lay the little butter on top, let it melt in. But there we go. We've got some banana bread from the bananas that we had on hand, the walnuts that we had in the pantry. That'll be delicious there when it's cooled off and ready to get out. We'll get it out and cut it up and enjoy that delicious banana nut bread. Now I think I'm going to make chicken noodle soup for dinner. It's a cold day, and a pot of chicken noodle soup would be delicious. Well, I thank you for joining me here on day 5 of January, the Three Rivers Challenge, the Pantry Challenge put on by Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead. I've enjoyed doing it. I enjoy sharing with you what I use the pantry for, how I cook out of it. It's not anything unusual to me. We live out of our pantry quite often around here, but I don't always take you along with me, so it was a great privilege to have you join me today making the banana nut bread. I hope you get that recipe. That's a good recipe. It's one I've made for a lot of years. It's delicious. Thank you for joining me today, and like always, until next time.